Welcome to the GreatBase Tennis Podcast. I'm Steve Smith, along with, at the table,
Kostas.
Kostas. Give us a full name.
Constantinos Alevizopoulos.
Going to be a spelling bee. And on the line, we have Dave Anderson. And behind the scenes, we have Phil Abizito. Close enough? Pretty close. Great when you have a name like Smith. By Ivan Oseretz. Let's talk about Ivan Oseretz. Ivan Oseretz. He's working with GreatBase remotely now. He does have a girlfriend. Girlfriend has a horse and a dog. So he spent some time with his girlfriend. Actually, it was family first, girlfriend second. But we told him, yeah, you're going in number 3. But hopefully, I know he was going in 99 different directions, but that we can get more accomplished with him working with remotely than when he was here, because it's been almost 2 years that we've been up here in the mountains, Wintergreen, beautiful resort, amazing day to day. It's like we're in the forest. But we are getting a larger team in place as we speak. Costa was on the podcast before. Grew up hitting balls with
Stefanos.
Tsitsipas.
Yeah, that's correct. A long time ago, though.
It's a fun podcast to go back to. I know that people have asked us to talk about basics more. The beginning podcast, we did just that. But your coach used Vic Braden's books to teach you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I always remember him just being a fan of teaching in a very, he used to call orthodox way. And I was always really curious, even as a kid. And I asked him one day, how did you learn how to teach? Was it just, and I just remember him telling me about watching video cassettes, watching a video cassette of him coach. And he said it was kind of awkward because it didn't look like you were going to learn something. But as the tape went on and on, it was like, oh, wow, like that sounds true. That sounds true. And another really, I remember he telling me, I asked him one day, what would be like one drill, if you could do one drill, what would it be? And he said, probably hitting inside the doubles alley. And, obviously, if you spend more time with Coach Steve or the GreatBase, you really see why, that it's so important. But, yeah.
No, we have kids do that. Singles court 19.1, doubles court 24.2 degrees wide. Braden had so much to do with being around pros. He worked for Jack Kramer, ran the tour. I think a lot of people realize that. What an education that was, to be around just Gonzalez and Riggs and, so many others, and all the Aussies, Laver, Emerson. So the grass years ago, say even at Wimbledon, they didn't have a tarp to pull over. And the players would just hit in the alley because that's where the grass was decent. Grass would get worn out. By the second week, the players were wearing spikes. They didn't want the ball to bounce. We had a young gal from Canada who's been here many times. She was here with her mom this time. Mom, totally beginner. She trained the whole time. Obviously, she's very fit, very athletic, a yoga teacher. Amazing how much she improved because she didn't have to unlearn. But we do these post videos, and the daughter hit the ball so well. I'm always telling her, you'll talk to a telephone pole. So Costas said, everybody gets together and gives advice, and people are leaving. And Costas said, well, I need to learn to talk more, and you need to learn to talk less. Well put. Got some applause. But he went to high school with Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. No, we'll move on. We have to come back to those guys. Why don't you give us a Wimbledon score? We'll talk about Wimbledon for just a minute.
Yeah.
I know Dave says he's got some questions.
Yeah, I'll
just give us a score.
I'll read some scores from the men's draw.
Just go one at a time.
Okay, Fritz against Diallo. Fritz won in 5 sets. 3-6, 6-3, 7-6, 4'6", 6'3".
Okay, let's just leave that. Leave it for that. We'll just go over the one. Connections. First thing comes to mind with Taylor Fritz. He's improved so much. 4 in the world. This is advice for moms. I mean, his mom, Kathy, made top 10 in the world. So you got to figure that was a very big bonus. Your mom rallying up the middle. And you're, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years old. And your mom's a machine from the baseline. That has to be a plus. I do think that, I know the moms can be too soft, which is natural. Mommy's baby, they're babies. My mother used to say it's too bad in elementary school that there weren't more male teachers. I have an older brother who used to draft people based on the fact that they were afraid of their mother. Roger Federer, Lynette Federer, the Afrikaner. With Fritz, so Matt Clore, I know he spent some time with him, would never say that he coached him. Says he's the second most competitive tennis person in America next to Coco Gauff. And he's picked on for not being able to volley very well. But Matt Clore says he's just got the attitude, that's okay, I'll just hit the ball down your throat. But he starts points well, he returns well, his movement's got so much better. Oh, it'd be nice if he was a better volleyer. But the other guy, the Canadian, how do you pronounce his name? Diallo?
Diallo, yeah.
Mm-hmm. On one of our podcasts, Peter Cobelt, he was a volunteer coach at Kentucky. And Peter's about the same size. Peter's someone we made a video for, and not that he really was the best player, but he was ranked number 1 after he made all these changes. He had a really good fall. But he coached him when he was at Kentucky. It's the connection. So he was on our podcast, Peter, talking about his experience working with him. What comes to your mind with either of those two guys, Dave?
Yeah, I got to, I have a nonstop tennis on in my life, it seems, even when I'm coaching, the TV's on. And so, but I noticed one thing right away. I saw, Diallo, I think in his box, his team, and I saw Craig O'Shaughnessy, must be involved with him. I think the guy's incredibly athletic mover. He has the arrogance of youth in a sense, it looks like, where he's kind of fearless. I mean, when you can drop bombs at $130 without even trying, the sport opens up a little bit for you. But Fritz returned so well, and I mean, he just I think Diallo got a little tired, and I saw the end more than the majority of the match, and with Fritz, I mean, Coach Andreas and I were talking about this now regarding Fritz. It's just like Fritz is a gamer, and I think that Diallo is too. But some people just they're just gamers by nature, and I definitely, when I think of him, I just think of that quality. I mean, he's like, he wants to score, and he wants the situation to be large, and I think that's where he's at his best. But he's definitely, he's guessing up there when he comes forward. There's no doubt that many times he's come forward where he's not needing much to end the point up there. But when he does need something up there to end the point, I mean, you can almost see the look of surprise on his face when he comes up with the volley. That's worked out well for him. He almost, it's like a sense of accomplishment, kind of cool look that he gets on his face, and I bet he'll keep rounding it out a little bit. That would be my guess over his career. And he'll keep trying to round it out, and it'll get a little bit better all the
time. Connections. I was out in Hawaii recently, and a really nice man asked me to get Scott Wittenberg on the podcast. We had Kim on, his younger brother, Scott. Scott was sent to me when he was 18. I think it was 23, played tournaments. But he was a college teammate of Craig O'Shaughnessy's. And that really helped Craig because Dustin Brown, both Wittenberg brothers, coached Dustin. He's Jamaican, but he grew up in Germany. And Dustin there was 2 Dustin Browns. One was on, one was off. It's just a little bit unpredictable. I know my son Connor, he had a win and a loss against Dustin Brown. But Dustin beat, we're running this camp in Germany, and we called Scott Youngwin. Youngwin shows up, and the kids were like at the edge of their seat because he's at our camp, and he was just at Wimbledon, and his student beat Nadal. But one thing, that O'Shaughnessy, if you follow anything, unless there's a shout out to him as you go to Brain Game, is he's definitely encouraging people to go forward, to play at the net. But Harry Fritz, Taylor's middle name is Harry, his uncle. He was the coach, the director of tennis at the Richmond Hill Country Club. And long time ago, he hired one of our students, Richard Hernandez. And Richard was terminated by Harry based on the way he taught. But the members had a petition, and they had him reinstated. And Harry was upset, but Harry eventually resigned very shortly afterwards. When you and I went up there, we didn't know that going in, but we made like 100 videos for junior players, adult players. But all the years went by, and Harry, which is big on his part, is he learned to respect what Richard was doing because Richard had so much success with Canadian juniors. So Harry, I understand from the story Richard told me there, he's also, like Richard, has a business where they resurface and build tennis courts. So Richard's out in California, and there's a conference for court builders, and they're having a beer, Harry and Richard all these years later, and they started talking about Taylor and talked about the guys right there. He could win if he could be better from the service line in, win a major. And next thing you know is Harry said, get in the car, and they went to talk to Guy, the father. They drove like 45 minutes. Maybe we talked about this story before because I know that Raven Clausen was asked to help him when they were playing World Team Tennis. But you just think about it, I know in California it used to be big where people would let's play 21. You just feed the ball in underhand and then you play points out. And sometimes, say, okay, the feed doesn't count in the first hit. But Sampras, when he played, is like, no, you just feed the ball and you just play. You can actually play so many more points. I mean, the serve and return are such a huge part of the game. But with Taylor Fritz, he actually, listeners should know that, he played all the sports growing up. Had the helmet on, he was playing football. But he was good enough to be a tail ender and just being invited to a USTA camp. He's in the 12 and under group. And he realized that the kids were better than him. And then he went home and said, okay, I need to specialize. But they had him play all sorts of sports. I've over the years, I've coached some people that, learned to play on the tennis court in his backyard. But, he's 4 in the world. But, they went 5 sets today. He won one of those as a breaker, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you do the point differentiation. It does help. The Canadian kid's like 6'7", right?
Yeah, he's tall.
Maybe taller. Serving out.
Yeah, I think he's 6'8", yeah.
Serving out a tree. Like Cobell, he was serving out of a tree. Give us another name, another score.
Another interesting matchup, Nori against TFO.
Let's go through that. Nori won.
Nori won in 4, 4-6, 6-3, 6-3, 7-5.
Well, David's associate, Tracy King, spoke a little about Nori. Born in South Africa, but raised in New Zealand. First time I ever saw him play, I was making a video for Matt Clore for Mackenzie McDonald. And he doesn't have the cleanest game by any means. But I just think, born in South Africa, raised in New Zealand, went to college in the U.S., and he plays for the UK. So pretty adaptable. TFO on grass. TFO, Papa Smith. I was around him for 2 weeks because I was with my son on the tour, and obviously he didn't remember my name. Just, hey, it was Papa Smith. But he will say hello to everybody. That guy says he has an amazing personality. One time I was in Lake Nona and, taking a group of homeschoolers, non-traditional scheduler. I said, all right, guys, we're parked the 2 minivans right here, and we're going to chart how many of these kids come out of the high school. They're all on their phone. And every kid was on their phone. I said, count. 1 for 1, 2 for 2. 76 for 76, straight on the phone. And then out of nowhere, TFO goes by on a skateboard listening to music. That's one thing I think of TFO. Connections. Alex Vukovic, who played at Princeton, became a sparring partner at, was it the JCTT, or help me with the initials?
Yeah, JTCC.
Say it again?
Junior Tennis Champion Center.
Yeah, so TFO is so extroverted, but Vukovic said when he was there, TFO was very young, he said the entire lunch period just hit the backboard. Just hit the backboard. But, there's, that's just how the brain works. I mean, you can hit the ball any way you want, but, hit the extra moves he has on his forehand or the calculation on the backhand volley. Grass, you put people on a different surface. They're always, if they're an American kid, North American kid, always growing up on hard court, and you see them play on clay, that shows some signs, but definitely when they play on grass, especially the beginning of the tournament. With Nori, played college tennis at TCU. Boy, they're on fire now with, they were on fire before Scotty Perelman got there, but Scotty's there. They're going to continue the climb. What do you got on those two guys? What comes to your mind?
Yeah, I mean, Nori playing just down the road, half hour away. I think, you've said it before, and will versus skill. I think he's obviously got the skill, but it's obvious that he has some areas that he's learned to calculate more than it is efficient, and but he's got incredible will. I mean, I don't think I would have bet on him having the career he had, when he was at TCU. I mean, I knew he'd have a run out there on the tour a little bit, but I don't think I would have bet at that time, honestly, that he would have had the career he had. So I think it's a huge testimony to his internal drive, his will. TFO, I mean, he's got shoulders that look like they have watermelons in them. And I think that, a few of the questions I have for you later, but it's some people are good despite, and they're just enough in the ballpark on some things to, they're enough in the ballpark to get away with it. But I think that it's very misunderstood when we talk about people like that. A TFO who's certainly done amazing things and had some adversity in his life growing up, and but it's really about how good could they be, and what if they were capable of doing things, whether it's Fritz going forward or TFO, having a more efficient look at how he turns for his forehand side, being able to stick a backhand volley as well as being able to come in and play a finesse volley below net level, which he's very comfortable with. But I think that, there's very few players that play the game that get close to filling their cup up all the way. And just there's always something left undone for many of them, even if they gave all the effort necessary. And I think those two guys that played TFO and Nori, I think Nori's going to feel like he left it all out there, probably TFO probably as well. But there's no doubt that both could be better. Whether it was done early in their life, now the odds on it ever getting done are very slim, I think.
With letting the athlete out, finding the athlete, being an athlete, with watching kids play ultimate frisbee. I mean, we play the tennis game lightning ball, which is basically the same thing. With just being able to compete. With Brent Salazar, who played tennis at New Mexico, was taught by Joey Johnson, really got into nutrition and bodybuilding. And then now he's back with the Chicago Bears. But he had a career in the NFL, and he was a head of fitness at the USTA. and the backstories. TFO, took the criticism with a smile on his face, but I understand through Matt Clore that that's not typical Salazar. But he said to TFO, where I'm from, meaning the NFL, where I'm from, you'd be a water boy. Because the NFL, I mean, those guys are like walking statues. I mean, you think about the guys that are 6'7", 6'8". I mean, obviously, both of them are very, very athletic. And I think that, it'd be interesting to find out, hey, did this guy play a little rugby when he was a kid, this Nori? I'm going to guess that TFO didn't play that many sports. It would just be a guess. But his dad was a custodian at the tennis club, and he just hit millions of balls. I remember when he won a big check, broke down emotionally because he said, now I can buy my parents a house. Those are the stories I really like, is the backstories. But yeah, we just filmed a young girl from Canada. She's been here many, many times. And I mean, she, talk about what efficient or textbook, like easy power, smooth, hitting the ball so well. But I said, those strokes are useless. Without mobility, without competitiveness, those strokes are just useless. Unless they change the scoring system where it's like figure skating and it's like gymnastics where there's a judge that says, okay, that's a 9.6. That's Nadia Comaneci years ago, 1976, where she got 10s in gymnastics. Give us another score.
Yeah, I'll go through the women's draw as well. Sabalenka beat Buskova 7-6, 6-4.
What do you have on that, guys? Costa, Dave, any comments?
I mean, I think like all matches Sabalenka plays, it's in her hands. And I've watched Buskova a little bit up close, and she's a great fighter. But I feel like it's a pretty one-sided affair that just comes down to, against almost not everybody, but it's just the ball's always in Sabalenka's court, and whether she's executing, and I think people, try to go through her, and that's obviously a very tough formula to try to go through Sabalenka, and I would have loved to had an Ash Barty around still, to see how she would have tried to maneuver that match a little bit. I think she has a little bit different skill set that would allow her to maybe not fight fire with fire, but I think that most of them try to do that, and I'm not sure that it's a smart decision.
Sabalenka, boom, boom, and more boom. When someone has that big a serve, you think, okay, I got to hang in there to break, but I've got to hold. And kill or be killed, you would think that more people say, okay, I'm going to go in and I'm going to give her a smaller target, and I'm not going to let her tee off where she has the entire court to hit into. I'm going to take time and space away from her. With Ash Barty, well, let me say this about Sabalenka. I saw a film of her volleying service line to service line with Djokovic on the grass this fortnight. And it looks like she definitely volleys better in a drill session than she does in a match, because in a match, she doesn't hit that many volleys. She's getting that mid-court ball, and, that's the put-away ball. She's not typically hitting a mid-court ball. Give Jack Grapple credit for this. The approach shot is the money shot. The volley is a cash-in shot. So not really closing points off at the net. But yeah, you guys can make more comments on that. But I want to come back. You mentioned Ash Barty. For the tennis parents listening, her father used to go up to the player and the parent to say, "Could I do you? Let me do us a favor by telling you how to beat my daughter." That's pretty much backwards. A lot of parents are biting fingernails, they're climbing the fence, and the guy's going, "Please play this way against my daughter. If you would play this way, you have a better chance of winning, and it's going to really help her out." And he wasn't gamemanship or any reverse psychology, but it was just understanding that junior tennis is junior tennis, and it's it's a marathon. But anything else on Sabalenka?
Yeah.
No, I saw that same video. That came to mind with me too. I mean, I've seen her work on her volleys on practice courts, and I mean, she volleys reasonably well, but like anything, if you don't use it in the real world, it's not going to come into fruition in the same manner.
Well, she's lost 2 finals, both well, I should say that not that she lost 2 finals, but against Coco Gauff, U.S. Open, and then the French. But after she played at the U.S. Open, she was very self-critical about her play from the service line in. And what was interesting about that is, I went back and looked at the videos. So yeah, you could definitely volley better, but gets so emotional. What do you got, Costa? Anything on that?
Yeah, I mean, she kind of reminds me of like a heavyweight boxer. And that's kind of what comes to my mind. Tries to really just bully people around the court. Like she hits the ball so hard. That's kind of what she would remind me of, like a George Foreman, someone that can just throw punches super hard.
Yeah, it's a big hitter. But that's be able to come in and neutralize off the staying close on the return. I just think about the supermarket of tennis. I mean, Connors. Think about the late Bud Collins, steal the ace. Get that ball back deep and centered, and that's what Djokovic, Jack Kramer term, sledgehammer. Just pound it back deep, or you can speed off of speed, and if you're in close, you have a better chance of taking the angle away from the server, making her play more balls. But again, looking to force. But if you're playing against her, it's like, okay, on my serve, I'm going to understand the geometry of the court. 130 degrees from the net. I'm going to understand stats if I win 2 out of 3. But I would not want to, especially on a grass court, or any court for that matter, just get into a slugfest with her. Yeah. Give us another one. What do you got?
So a name that I've heard you throw around, Coach, a lot is Diane Snyder. They say it right? Schneider, excuse me.
No problem.
And Perry, Perry 16461.
Well, Schneider, someone that Dave knows well, Russian mom, Natalia Sorokin, very good friends with her mother. So I was asked, what should this young girl do? She was, I think, 5 in the world in ITFs. And I said, well, show me video. And then looked at video and I said, well, she should go to NC State for 2 years. Now, she was there 1 year. She needs to improve her serve. She needs to improve her play from the service line in. But just a bulldog, a fighter. Andy Fitzell worked with her for a short period of time. And it was at least a topic of conversation is Ivan Oseretz speaks Russian fluently. And the recommendation was, okay, Ivan doesn't have to go in as the coach, but just, be there and say, okay, these are the drills you need to do. Let me help you with these progressions on your serve. Let me do these drills with you from the service line in. I think one thing working with players, say, okay, basics, but then the basics turn into instincts. So, you could actually tell people, no, when you play, just play the way you want to play. But we're going to work on these skills. So that's where it's a point of interest. I think she's, 5 months, 5 coaches. It's pretty close. She was working with Murat Safin's sister. Brother, sister. They pushed ahead of the cliff. Go ahead. Dianara?
Yeah.
Dianara. Yeah. They pushed ahead of San Angelo, Texas. Nancy and Cliff Ritchie were arguably the best brother-sister combination until the Safin and Safina. But I saw that she lost it in the match. But she's doing really well playing with Andreeva.
Mm-hmm.
Mira Andreeva. Talk about no stage fright. And we do that with kids. We get them in front of the group. So we had 20 kids here today. everything from a 4-year-old to a beginning mom, but we have some players that play reasonably well. Or, a player who's done with college tennis and rebuilding your game to try to play pro tennis. So we have a smorgasbord. And help me with my train of thought.
We were just talking about the players.
Andreeva and
Yeah, stage fright. And senior moment, you guys got to keep me going here. 7-0, I'm an old guy. Only fallen down twice since I turned 70. Ba-boom. Long ways down. So anyway, Andreeva, we have kids get in front. Say, okay, Japanese kid here sing the national anthem, Canadian kid, 4th of July coming up. Tell a story. You can just ask questions. I told this one kid, I said, we're going to go to Panera. We're going to wait for a real cute girl to come in. And you're going to go up to the cute girl and say, I'm here with my crazy coach. And he told me that I was gutless. I was so chicken that I wouldn't even come up and tell you that you're pretty. So these guys would just freak out. Here's a side story of that same kid. It's a good way to prove you're living in the U.S. to prove to the kid that your parents are intellectuals. Fill in the blank. One word. Green Bay. And they look at it, they have no idea Green Bay Packers. It'd be like, seriously, when this happens, there's kids living in Dallas that don't know that Dallas Cowboys are the Cowboys. I asked all these kids from Toronto, what color jerseys do the Maple Leafs wear? And they look at you and say, I don't know. They're not living among jocks. They're living among intellectuals. I mean, you have to really be in the dark not to know. Green Bay Packers in the US of A. So the stage fright, that's always interesting. We had this one kid from California a week ago, and he's singing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, the alphabet. And so he's singing, and his two cousins are here. They're both totally introverted, and he goes, and then sing along with me. And it's just like no stage fright. I mean, it's so important to find out about the intangibles. I mean, I love it when a kid is down 5-love in the first set, 5-love in the games, and they just come up to the line and go, love 5. I'm saying that kid's got no insecurities. He's just, that kid's going a long ways. But Schneider, she's a millionaire. She's 12 in the world. And they're rocking it in doubles. Don't really like the way they play, but they're rocking it. But that word speculation, what if? I think when people listen to us, it's not so much we're being critical of a girl who's 12 in the world, but just simply how could a player be better? And say, well, no, we're not talking about the pros changing, but just talking about tennis math and calculation and look at the angle of racket face, look at the angle of racket path, how long is the hitting zone? What do you got on Schneider? Anybody?
Well, I mean, I remember her debut, down when she played a fellow Greek, Sakari, at the Aussie Open, and Secker was there in the stands, taking a lot of notes. I remember it was well televised, and she had Sakari on the ropes, and that was when Sakari, that was before she kind of hit this downswing.
Tell us how you really pronounce her name.
It's Maria Sakkari.
Maria Sakkari.
Yeah,
Maria Sakkari.
She's actually the same age with me. I don't know her at all personally, but she was raised in. He's from Athens. I don't know that much about her, but I mean, I always got the feeling she was more of she was a really good athlete and kind of I think the correct term is a tomboy. Tomboy, yeah.
So when she was young, she really sports.
Yeah, but
that's a term that's thankfully it's gone away a little bit in the U.S. or a lot because now girls have such a great crack at sports before they didn't. Yeah, she definitely spent some time in the gym. She definitely was fit, but she's fallen off, right?
Yeah, that's what I've heard of. Yeah.
I want to go one more.
Yes. Let's go with an upset, kind of.
Quite a few upsets.
Yeah. Paulini lost 6-4. So, sorry, I'll say it from the beginning. Paolini against Rakimova. Hope I pronounced it right. Rakimova won 4-6, 6-4, 6-4.
Well, I can go first. How do you say it, the Italian girl? Paolini.
Yeah.
Man, like an Alcaraz, she's playing with a smile on her face. Sense of enjoyment. We can talk about her doubles, too. Irani, with her service motion. I mean, she got to the French Open final, and Serena just was home run derby in the serve, but what a great competitor. What a great competitor. Just to let you know, stroke production is a bonus. But I think she's a great story because she's a late bloomer. You know, she had the opportunity to come to college in the U.S. She said she was too shy, couldn't speak the language. And, you know, she last year Wimbledon final, right? So was it the French Open final too?
Yeah.
And, you know, basically, you know, it gets up to that level at age 28. The teenage sensation is someone who's playing on TV. And, you know, kids don't realize, okay, you're 16 years old. 7 years from now, you're only 23 years old. So what are you so stressed out about? I would be stressed out about being lazy. I'd be stressed out about playing dumb. I wouldn't be stressed out about wins and losses. And I'd be, you know, how do you improve your UTR? You know, what you have for breakfast? I mean, you know, what's your mile time? What's your beep test time? When's the last time you did the spider drill on your own? All that stuff. But any comments on those two players?
Yeah, I mean, I exactly what you said about Paolini. I was excited to see her come onto the scene, you know, at the age she was at. It's a great tool for us to help people understand that, you know, really nothing comes quick anyways. I mean, some people might get there a little quicker, but nothing good comes quickly. And I think she's a real testimony to that. And I don't think that, you know, I think she definitely can play all over the court and does a great job in the doubles with Irani. They're fun to watch, and but I think in an event like this, and I don't think her game has the kind of firepower where it secures her a spot in the next round on this particular surface. So I know on paper it's a huge upset, but I don't know in reality if it is that big an upset in this particular court today.
Oh, time management. Every day brings something new. Young girl who's really high on this girl's emotional intelligence. And she's very unusual because she plays so well from the service line in. Not to use anybody's name, but so on the coaching side of the world, Miran Mann, and his team of coaches, you know, 9 months ago, she's changing grips, and she's already just enters the 18th. Now, again, it's a Canadian girl, so people guess who it is. But, well, you know, won quite a few doubles titles, been top 10 in the country. But, you know, you're not too good from the baseline. I mean, you're in trouble because you got to return serve. You got to hit passing shots, and you know, obviously, you just bread and butter. You got to be able to stay in the rally, wait for the short ball. So, you know, the Quebecers, they finished through grade 11, and they have to go 2 more years before they prepare for the university, but they finished with high school at age 11. We had a gal years ago who was one in Canada, and she ended up spending 2 years with us at a junior college. She went to the University of Georgia, but she was ineligible. She finally got on campus. So after us, she played for Brian Shelton. Remember Brian Shelton's telling us that she was the best prepared player he ever had. I played 2 years of serving, going forward, and doubles, and this and that. But, you know, this one girl said, well, I'm just, you know, getting some help. Speaking of Dave Secker, he's one of the coaches helped me, is that, you know, you just case study by case study. So some, you know, other players that he knows through other coaches from Montreal, Quebec, is she can go to homeschool in Ontario. Okay. I have to deal with eligibility. So that'd be 1 year. In fact, I've talked to them about your place out in Dallas. And then I talked to the coach at Collin County. So even the next year is, but she doesn't drive now. Well, she learned to drive. She could be in Dallas. So you go to Collin County. And the coach at Collin County is connected to us through, I've done some work with him, a couple of traveling clinics where I was out in Dallas, but, Ferris State background, worked with Chad Berryhill, one of our coaches, won a national title and 2 national titles in college tennis, starting with junior college and then Division II. And then that's 2 more years. And then then I'm going to be ready for big time college tennis. And talk to the people who are big time, and the ones that are big time. I listened to a podcast just this morning, the Irish guy, Functional Tennis, the girl from Georgia. She goes, well, I wasn't that good. I was only like 20 in juniors, 20 in the world. With, people get so wrapped up in becoming a 10 on the UTR list. Yeah, I was 20. I wasn't really ranked that high. And, now she's going to try to embark on a pro career. But it always takes more time. Tell us about Kruger. How did Kruger do?
Lost to Pavlyuchenkova, 6-4. Lost a tight first set. Both players were holding pretty routinely through the first. Wasn't a lot of forecourt play from either player. She took a nasty spill out there. Came back and actually seemed to play better after it. Had to tape her leg up a little bit. And then she got up, an early break. 3-1 in the second and ended up not doing a great job of managing her serve but it's it's a similar situation. I think she put herself in great position to win, and I think that with a little bit of variety, like we were talking about with Ash Barty, I think Ashlyn has those skill sets. I know she has those skill sets to be able to mix things up a little bit. And I feel like that a little bit more of that, and it would have been enough to maybe be into the third round playing Osaka.
We have a TV on court, big, huge screen TV, but it's indoors, so the weather's beautiful. We have 16 clay courts. We're outside, and I didn't see any of that match, but actually, we recently made an educational tape for the Intercollegiate Tennis Association. It's called Refresher Course. You can look it up on YouTube, and there's a short film of you working with her as a really young girl. 6'4", 7'6", to me, that's a flip of a coin. I'd like to, let's look at the stats. Stats tell a story, but they don't tell the whole story. Wayne Gretzky, stats are for losers. But yeah, because I think people get too much into the analytics. But 6'4", 7'6", there had to be some huge points. Could have gone one way or the other. But just knowing her tennis and her tennis through you, and that, is she playing doubles? Is she playing doubles the right way? How many times did she play an approach volley? How many times did she serve a volley? How many times did she take a second serve, like say on a green light point and come in? And then is she doing all the situational training to train for that? It's like Glory Connors with Jimmy Connors. I just love this. He had to play practice sets 15, 30, one serve. Because, you lose that, it's, you're 15, 40, you're in the hole. And it's a pretty important point to fight back to level 30 all. But I use the line quite often, live your life to win. And you could add one word, live your life to win Wimbledon. It's absolutely amazing to me that coaches don't train players year round to win Wimbledon. That's the cathedral of tennis. That's it, Wimbledon. When Lendl had won everything, Davis Cup, everything, but Wimbledon. And I think it was 1987, he lost to Pat Cash. spectator held up the sign, cash or check. And, Pat Cash obviously could come in. The grass was different at that time, played much faster than it does today. But Tony Roach, his coach, said, your ego's too big, number one, and you're too greedy. He goes, play the entire year like you want to win Wimbledon. Don't skip the French. I mean, he got to the finals against Cash. It's so easy to be the armchair quarterback, but Vic Braden used to say, how many steaks can you eat? Like Coco Gauff, I know Jack Kramer would say this, is that she just wins the French. She lost at Wimbledon. It's tough transition and this and that. And, just say, well, to turn the clock back, like say the forehand side, is that, public knowledge, $50 million a year ago. She's doing okay. She could buy a few steaks. But that's where to win that tournament, and she actually plays from the service line in quite well when she plays doubles. If that'd be a tough thing to do, but even for her to say, okay, if she just went and said, I'm doing this, I'm playing side spin forehands, and just radically, because the people on the other side aren't really coming in, they're not attacking. Then you get people think we're off our rocker. But I just think of tennis minds from years ago watching, people play backcourt, singles and doubles. Now Kruger was seeded too, 31, so she's obviously way up the rankings, and she's certainly making a comfortable living if she's seeded 31 at Wimbledon.
Yeah, I think she, she's a competitive mind for sure. I don't think it'll sit well with her, which is a good thing. But like with anybody, whether it's working with a junior player or anything in our worlds, that, it's being proactive and trying to round yourself out and solve problems. And I think she'll come back from it better. It needs to be studied, and you need to, there's always so much introspection as a player. And then, like you said, about Coco and eating so many steaks, how much can you do? I think that people need to look at what kind of career they're going to have. And, it can shoot out there a long ways now. At 21 years old, you could play till 35. And, especially if you wanted to keep going in doubles. And I think that, there's a very particular way that you could make that happen for sure. By playing all over the court, by embracing it, and oftentimes the risk that people feel in their heads isn't as great as it seems. By doing that kind of stuff, it's much riskier to not do it.
With being a big fan of hockey, I would say it's being a student of hockey, growing up in it. Players are on the ice, they have an assignment. This is what you need to do. You're playing offense and defense, and this is what you have to do. And certainly there are role players. Serge Savard in the NHL years ago. There's stars, superstars, and Bobby Orr. So Andy Roddick, arguably 3 finals at Wimbledon, to me, is better than 1 championship title at the U.S. Open. But, if you ever watched him practice, he's going to be one of the first guys to yell, my volleys suck. And, they weren't turning to him in Davis Cup, for example, with that serve to play doubles. And one time on a live mic during a Davis Cup tie on a hard court in California, 5 sets, Patrick Macker on the chair, being the captain, says, serve and volley. So he serves, he goes in, dumps the volley. This is what happened in the NHL. And then he, to the captain on the bench, that was a great effing idea. And it's like, are you kidding me? With, on a live mic, Uncle Tony, who was picked up. Live mic means no one's supposed to hear it. I can't believe how dumb Roger's playing. Who would ever think of saying that Roger's playing dumb? So Roger is, and when you get deep, he's going, I like my forehand better than I like my volleys. is that he's running around his forehand. He's hitting it into Nadal's lefty forehand. And then Djokovic comes along and he's hitting into that unbelievable backhand and losing record against both those guys. And then in 2017, he uses analytics, and the story was he told Tony Godsick it's too expensive. Godsick says his agent, I'll pay for it. He goes, well, I don't want all those numbers in my head, but he does it. And then his father, he says, I should have listened to my father. My father always told me I was too chicken. I didn't hit my backhand. But Federer, this is all repetitive for these podcasts, but he was asked one time in an interview about using charts. He said, the only time I look at stats is at Wimbledon when the press give me the stats while they're setting up for the interview. And then the follow-up question, what about your coach? And he said, no, we just go on hunches. That's not going to happen in other sports. I mean, that's where tennis and the commentating, I love the whole thing. I mean, but it's just not high level. It's not, it doesn't compare to other sports. But Kruger, it could come back. There's a young kid here from Hawaii, and he was taught to play tennis by Jeff Lewis. Jeff Lewis lived in Hawaii. I guess they say the Big Island, there's a prep school that has indoor courts, and they have to have indoor courts because there's so much mist and this and that. But, it's coming back to him fast. I would say this is that being an all-court player could come back to Kruger. But she'd have to have practice. You don't have to, play like you practice like you play. It's like, no, just play any way you want. When you play, it's up to you. It's like college coaches on the bench. Well, here's a suggestion. It should never be a directive. And it's, we have kids go, okay, we're going to go play a set. You have to serve volley both balls. Go play best of 5 sets. That's it. Just go play. And they love it. Or say, okay, play a set, just serve underhand to the underspin backhand. You got to play a backhand approach, play anywhere you want, but you got to play an underspin backhand, come in, go play a set, go play best of 5. Points are over very quickly. And then you're creating the situation where there's the attacker or the counter attacker. But I've been around enough 50 years later to know there's not a lot of creative practice through all levels of tennis. I do think a lot of times people are intimidated by the pros, or even intimidated by top college coaches. I've been to your practice. I've watched your students. I've seen your students. Some of them play for 4 years. What is going on? And it's kind of like they're untouchable because they're at that high level. Let's move on. You have a double score?
I do. So I try to focus more on the American players. Rombol and Smith beat Mickelson and McDonald 6-4, 7-4.
Mickelson and McDonald?
Romboli and Smith, yeah.
I'm not familiar with him. Who's he, Romboli?
Well, he was playing with George about 6 months ago. And then, George Goldoff before he played with Romboli, he almost got connected with J.P. Smith. So he's still out there battling. And, I'm not surprised by that result, really. I think Romboli and Smith are probably better doubles players, which doesn't always equate to the win. But I think that match doesn't surprise me too much. I didn't see any of it. I didn't even know the result yet. But
for our listeners, George Goldoff, he's based in Dallas. He helps Dave out with juniors when he's in town. It's a great story. He was supposed to come and work with me when he was younger. Didn't do it. And then I was out. He was at the Jimmy Johnson or the Advantage Tennis Academy. I think of Billy Martin now that I have a bad hip, UCLA coach. He's had bad hips since he was like 25. Arguably, Billy Martin, one of the best junior players ever. I remember sitting one time watching George play because Billy was trying to get him to go to UCLA. And I had brought some juniors out. They were, Billy was watching one court and the players I were playing on the very next court. And then George, his father said, you can't play pro tennis till you get your degree. So he came to work where I was. And I said, he's going to give lessons. And I said, who's paying who? Or as I gave him the gear, it's like, what, you're going to charge for lessons? What do you know about tennis? Typical of the sparring partner. I really have a problem with UTR paid hits. I thought a paid hit was for from the mafia. Come on, paid hit. My kid's 11 on the UTR. People are paying money to hit balls with your kid. I mean, tennis is so messed up. It's like so bad. Anyway, so George didn't do what he was told. George, read these books, and then when you give your hitting lessons, you can be 2% selfish and work on this because we did all the video work. I remember he came in, cocky kid from the University of Texas, and I said, "You can learn everybody's name here. I'm not going to work with you." He thought I was joking. I said, "No, you will learn every kid's name here, and then I'll work with you." And 7 years in Tibet, so he ended up. Matt Clore is the one. So I told George, I said, "George, you're just going to be cannon fodder. Don't do that." So he gets an expensive apartment in L.A. and he's practicing with Sam Querrey and Stevie Johnson, and he's going to Carson. I was there once or twice, and it's like, okay, you're just cannon fodder. The practices are not designed around you, and it's a myth that you're just going to practice with better players, and all of a sudden you're going to become better. So Matt Clore is the one. I told him, I said, go to Orlando. I told him, told this to a few other people too. I said, go hang out with Matt and just be a sparring partner for women at the USTA Tennis Center. He didn't do it. So then finally Matt, who is always so calm, cool, collected, sees him somewhere. And then he comes to spend a longer period of time. Then COVID hits and he was with us for 7 months. So then he's coaching at Baylor and he's at a place, at a tournament. He doesn't even have any rackets all play. And because, he's gone through that transition where he's going to coach, but now he's back into playing. So that's great. Mickelson, he does so well at Newport. He takes the tennis ball and throws it out of the stadium with his left arm. He's playing. He truly is a lefty. I've been told recently that, and not Nadal is. I guess he's confirmed that Nadal is a lefty. He's not a righty. He played two hands both sides, but that Ivan knows the story quite well because he grew up with Mickelson. Mickelson played some doubles with his sister, and the guy's just a winner. I mean, like Kruger, was seeded this year at Wimbledon, I bet.
Yeah. Singles.
In singles. McDonald never really mastered the serve. He spent 3 weeks with us. I wish he spent the whole time. But his girlfriend wanted him to leave. We had a bubble before it was a bubble. We had this fence around this property, 3 miles from the USTA Center, called it. It was on Happy Lane. That's what we call it. We call it Happy Lane, but it was on Happy Lane. With, I saw George play. I don't know if he was playing with Rompoli. Is that how you pronounce his name?
Yeah.
Rompoli, yeah.
Rompoli, yeah.
I'll tell you a funny story about that. But my son played Smith. PJ Smith. What is it? TJ?
I didn't have his first name.
JP Smith. Tennessee. Yeah. Ozzy, who played at Tennessee.
Yep.
Andy Fitzell was with my son. My son beats JP and he wins $7,000. And he's going, I just won $7,000. And I remember Andy going, that's a problem. Because he thought it was a lot. He thought it was a lot of money, and thought it was a big win. So my son, I think of my son's ability to play doubles. Not that I'm a doting dad, but hats off to Evan King. But I can remember my son playing doubles against Evan King. But here's my story with Rompoli. Ram Ramanathan, Andy Fitzgerald, and I go to the U.S. Open with this Indian kid, and he hasn't got it any higher than he was. He for our listeners, so we have a lot of Indian kids throughout the U.S. who play. He wins the 14s in India. Never played another junior tournament. He went to Sanchez Casal in Spain. He the Spanish economy is bad, or has been bad for a long time. So they came up with 50 tournaments per year, like $15,000 tournaments. So Ram Ramanathan, that'll help me see if I have a senior moment with the story. So Ram Ramanathan doesn't win one match his first year there. Big, long, lean guy, great body for tennis, can pound a serve. The blind squirrel found the nut. So he did have one time he had a really good tournament in Newport on the bad grass. But, hanging in there, stayed at the same level. He was supposed to come and really work on his game. I remember charting his match at the US Open qualies. 177 points, and he had not cracked 1+ on a backhand return. 1, he was running around it, or 2, he was chipping it. Competitive, though. And, but what happened, he was supposed to come work with us, but once he came to work with us, it was right about the same time where we made the Davis Cup team. And that never made the changes. So a young guy, I said, well, if you win qualies and you win the tournament, you could win X amount of millions of dollars. And I said, what percentage are you going to give Andy? What percentage are you going to give me? So remember Andy Fitzgerald's great thing. I said, what we should do is set up, I don't think they have in America, fast food for Indians. So keep in mind, his name is Ram Ramanathan. And this name reminds me of, Chipotle is like the middle name of most junior tennis players in America now. Chipotle. So Andy Fitzgerald, funny guy, says, yeah, we could name it Rampoli. So when you said that, I go, Rampoli. With, I wish doubles got more attention. I wish doubles was on TV more. Again, you would never convince me otherwise that if you play solid doubles, it's going to help you become a better singles player. How about the English girl? Tell us about
Raducanu.
Yeah. Everybody say King Arthur. Say King Arthur.
King Arthur.
Okay, so there's a gentleman from Liverpool. He sounds like one of the Beatles. And I would think, Dave, that on your social media platforms, that your Andre, your assistant he would know King Arthur, because King Arthur puts comments on everything. He loves tennis. He loves Zip Braden. He loves fact-based information. But he's critical of Raducanu. I don't see it. I mean, I think she's really good. I mean, the way she hits the ball, it's like, wow, this girl is a very, very good tennis player.
She won today.
She beat a Wimbledon champion.
Yeah, Vondrousova.
Lefty.
6-3, yeah.
Lefty.
Yeah.
How's confidence? It's hard to get and easy to lose.
Yeah.
I'd say she's confident right now. I think Navratilova is the first one who said that, but that's such a great line. I mean, I'm sure someone said it before her. Confidence is hard to get and easy to lose.
That is a good line.
Let's do a few questions and we'll sign off. But Wimbledon, I love Wimbledon.
They're just kind of things that popped into my head that come up. But for the listeners to get a little better feel for you, Steve, I'll give you. You just have to pick quick. I'm going to give you some. I'm going to start easy, and then we'll.
Oh boy.
These aren't really going to change the tennis world. All right, you got to pick one: dog or cat.
Oh, dogs.
All right.
Do I explain why, or just tell me?
No, that's it. I already asked you this one. Would you rather teach will or skill? I mean, would you rather teach a kid with will or skill?
Will.
Okay. The ultimate one. Would you rather watch bad tennis teaching for 1 hour, or would you rather play pickleball for 1 hour?
I've got a bad hip. I'd rather play pickleball for 1 hour.
Oh, really? All right. I didn't see that one coming.
No. What would I prefer?
Yeah.
If I
don't know.
The lesser of two evils?
Yeah. Yeah. You had to pick.
No, it's
what would you rather do?
No, it's actually painful. I mean, it's like stop the bleeding. To me, I mean, when it's two levels of ignorance. I mean, I guess I started at the top of the list, but no, like I said, there's two levels of ignorance. You don't know and you don't know. there's people who really care and they love the game and they're not mean to be harmful, but they don't even know they're harmful. They just don't know. I mean, it's like the patient is dying. We need oxygen. We need blood, and it's bad. It's really bad. It's criminal. It's criminal. That's really the great base is that all over the world, we're talking about these pros, like TFO, he's a superstar. Fritz is a superstar. Coco Gauff's a superstar. They're great, great, great. And we can learn so much from them based on character and will. But no, they could be better. But no, I mean, so many poor kids they get a late start, but on top of that, they get a bad start. Go to the top of the list, dogs. If you roll a ball under a couch, the dog knows it's coming on the other side. The cat doesn't know that. The cat acts aloof. The cat you would think is more intelligent, but no, it's the dog that's more intelligent. But on the other hand, if domestic cats, most of them, we did have Peter Cobell talk about his house cats. These are the fattest cats I ever saw in my life. But an Indian parent said that not too long ago. My kid is a house cat. He's not a street cat. My kid would not make it in India. The cats, the hunters, they're proud. They go out and catch a field mouse and they bring it back and go, look what I caught. No, the will is, we're talking to some Canadian kids today, and we Americans think that Canadians have done so well from a player development standpoint. But there's just hungry immigrants. Hungry dog hunts best. Pickleball, Andy Fitzell sent me recently a clip of Ryler DeHart. He started with Thomas Ollerstedt. I was involved long distance with video, as he became a 12 and under superstar in Florida. And then he was with me for a long, long time. And then he first coach was Craig Tiley. So three of us, and it's a great demo, short, compact swing on the forehand. And then he says, well, at the end, the ball's gone. He goes, at the end, you break your wrist to put more spin on the ball. What Braden used to say about that in bowling. So the bowler releases the ball, and then he starts, turning his hand over, making all these gestures. The ball is gone. He had the famous film of Brian Godfrey, and Godfrey was such a great player, such a hard worker. Is I said, well, at first I drive the volley, then I turn my racket underneath to keep it on the court. And Vic goes, well, as he's turning the racket underneath, the ball is 14 feet away from him in a forward direction. With, with pickleball, certainly I was talking to someone the other day, strategy. Coming in together, there are more swing volleys, very good for half volleys. The people who are winning the most with pickleball are the orthopedic surgeons. I read where you're not really supposed to put, lock these portable nets down. Don't lock the portable nets, because when old people like myself fall into it, it's better that the net is not secured, not locked down. But what other questions do you have?
Well, I mean, I got a couple of pages of them, so I'll skim through them. Yeah. On the strokes, things that people on the outside over the decades, I think really take shots at, don't maybe appreciate what you just said about Braden talking about the volley with Godfrey. The moment of impact, by the time you feel it, it's gone. But I think that the great base, we always, Coach Andreas and I, we're always trying to tell people the interrelationship, strokes, zones, the tactical implications of those things. But what are your thoughts on how, to when I'm just saying this for listeners that may be getting into the system and perhaps coaching their child or a player that's listening, some of the common things for instance, I'll go stroke by stroke, the serves, for decades, and it doesn't seem like we're fighting that fight as much anymore, but the toss, being relatively close to the peak of where a player can reach and not allowing it to drop. Do you still encounter that? What are your thoughts on that? Because I know early on in my career, that used to be just a constant battle. Now it's not as constant. What are your thoughts?
High toss. Braden gives you more time to be crummy, more time for extra movements. I saw this graph where Zverev, lowered his toss. It's almost like year by year, maybe it was 3 years and then 3 years and 3 years. Is you just need to go cold turkey. Someone shows you, okay, more racket at speed. Then people can argue, well, look at Sampras. His toss was high, and you can hit the ball any which way. It's not like, okay, you have to be out of a book, but you need more racket hit speed and the timing. To have the contact point where all the energy at the point of impact, the moment of truth, where are you generating all the forces? So, the power line, how the serve needs to be 45 degrees in two different directions. You're leaning in at 45, lower body, upper body, arm, and racket. And then the body segments with the hit are at a 45. When you film a kid and they shift their head, say they come to see you and they're 16 years old. I think one thing about Brookhaven, Dave has this great program. They're starting young kids and have a program where we certainly are a supplemental program. People will come and we're spending a lot of time training parents how to bring their kids up in tennis. But meet a kid who's 15. It's like, okay, every time you hit a ball, it's a safe bet that you shifted your head every time. But awareness, acceptance, commitment is that no, okay. I remember Jim Mantle trying to make a change from the medical community to the tennis world, jockocracy, and it's almost like he was too intelligent to be a tennis coach. But I remember him telling me I had to just toss low. You just do it. No compromise, no negotiations. It feels awkward at first, but yeah, I think another thing would be like say, well, on the backhand ground stroke, two-handed backhand, get the racket on edge. Well, why? I think it's great, but I don't think many young kids ask, so much in junior tennis, ask why. They just ask when's lunch. But why is 3 zones, 3 spins. You see people on a two-handed backhand, they turn, they automatically have the racket face closed. So in relationship with strokes, in relationship with spins, the wall to the ball turn, and be able to line that racket up where, okay, I can play get that racket face flat. I mean, to hit flat, you have to swing up because you got to counteract the angle of the incoming ball. But basics. Speaking of Zverev, he one time was quoted as saying, "My dad gave me a great base." And, he lost, right, at Wimbledon. All the players are great. 2 types of tennis players, those who play Wimbledon and those who don't. But way back when he was 14 years old, people knew he was going to be one of the best players in the world. And his own brother, because he was a little shaky from the backcourt, was all over the net. I think his best result was being a semifinalist in the Aussie Open. And but right under your nose, and his brother's 10 years older. Usually younger brothers listen to older brothers when they're 2 years apart, not so much, but if they're 10 years apart. But what else you got?
Yeah, I mean that's a common one. The forehand, the huge criticism that we face on the forehand for not having a wraparound finish, and people not really understanding the tracking aspect of how we develop, and I think that any comments you have on that, because again, people seldom get to see the finished products, right? And they're looking at the product being built, and Ashlyn, going back to her, nothing to do with her game. Well, it relates to her game, but she bought herself a very nice vehicle that she brought out. I got to take a look at it. I know nothing about cars, Steve, like you, and but this very, very nice Mercedes that I couldn't tell you what kind it is, but it's a sports. It's like a racer, and she opened it up in the hood, and then there was a sign thing that one mechanic in Germany working on the Mercedes built that entire engine. And it instantly hit me. I mean, so seldom do we get to build an engine completely without any interference or other hands. And it's not a control freak aspect of it where we want to do that, but sometimes there's just so much interference, and the forehand seems to be the biggest interference area I think, just pretty much in the tennis teaching industry. And any comments you have on that as it relates to the critic?
If there was a survey, how many coaches have worked with beginners and taken that beginner to a national level in juniors, or they're a beginner and the next thing you know, they play college tennis. Being beaten out in Hawaii, there's not a strong tradition of tennis success in Hawaii. And granted, it's out there. You're not going to get there by rowboat. But Puerto Rico, a little closer to the U.S., but Welby Van Horn, 4 courts for 10 years, developed more national champions in the state of Florida. So I think, so many things. The Jesuits, just give us the first 7 years. There's a young boy, because of his father and mother's work schedule, he's been able to come here. We've been here 2 years. We're 2 weeks shy of being here for 2 years, up in the middle of nowhere in the mountains. So, but the parents' work schedule has been pretty much here 1 week a month. And the dad gets it. He goes, no, I really want him to maintain a fixed wrist on his forehand for as long as possible. And Jeff Lewis was here talking about connections, and his wife went to the same medical school as his kid's father and mother. And so there's a connection there. And Lewis said to the kids here, and here's somebody I've known, he's an outlier. He's been teaching tennis. He doesn't say it that way, but when he was with me at 14, he was teaching tennis. He wasn't teaching tennis for money, but he was teaching tennis with the way we do it. And he told this group of kids, just stay in the cognitive state as long as possible. You're rushing the process. And and again, my background in hockey is that, you're a peewee when you're 12, and before that you were a squirt. But tennis is so out of whack. Where the forehand side, what we do is we take 3 tennis balls and say, okay, let me see you just take the ball, toss it, push it as a volley, and the wrist is fixed. Now drop it, hit a forehand. Now bring the racket over your head like you're hitting a topspin lob or an off-pace passing shot, and you got to keep your wrist fixed to do that. And just like where are your fingers pointing through the hitting zone. But I think YouTube is a problem. I think the powerful rackets are a problem. I know when you and I were together back in the 80s training tennis teachers, it was a big expense, but the rackets are only $5 for our budget. And for us to just get 100 wooden rackets for our PE classes, but also to learn how to string. So every year, $5 a racket would get 100 new rackets. And by the second year, there was still some that we could use. So we would literally have a mountain of these wooden rackets. And, just to play with anything. Let's just go out and play. And, it's too bad years ago we should have bought some stock in Babolat. Like, geez. So like in ice hockey, when the curved stick came out and actually boom Jeffrey on, he started taking slap shots even before that. At one point they outlawed slap shots. Sounds strong, doesn't it? Outlawed. The rules were against slap shots and the rules were against curved sticks. Because, kids need to learn to stick handle and pass and be able to, there's what's called the backhand shot versus, you're not just always hitting on the open forehand shot side. No, the forehand now, there used to be arguments, grips on volleys, or take the racket high or low. You mentioned the toss. But I would say now that most arguments in tennis don't get past the forehand. This Henry Park, he was a guest as a young teenager on this podcast. And, he said it. He said, people they just stop listening to GreatBase once they see we always teach the forehand. But on his own accord, during COVID, he started working on his game. And then the next thing you know, the head coach was working on the game. And next thing, even though the owner was absentee, he started to hear more about some stories of the players we've worked with. Not certainly that are not knocking on the door winning majors, but it's like there's a lot of success. And yeah, Henry was right at such a young age, is that people just like, no, I'm not listening to that. It looks so robotic, so mechanical. I love the Braden line though when people say ready, play. And, once a day I'm telling people, you're not it's not a field goal. Your forehand just sailed over the fence by 30 feet. And they're just trying to, Chris Clore, they're trying to launch missiles. Clones taught by clowns. You go to a junior tournament, almost everybody's playing the same. So, Welby Van Horn, the worst thing that can happen is you can hit a lucky shot, and you just keep searching for that the rest of your life. Let's go a couple more questions.
Well, I'll keep going with strokes, and then I think we'll have to save the rest for otherwise we'll be here for another 5 hours.
Just go a couple.
But I'll go a couple more strokes. The other biggest thing that I think is worth talking about is you've heard it your whole life. I have too. The volleys. You don't have time to change grips. And I think that again, we could go a whole podcast on stages and stage development and everything. But any comments on that typical criticism?
Well, volleys. I mean, it's how you talk to a kid. And I tell young coaches, I say, well, you'll hear me say things certain ways, but I wouldn't recommend to do that for a while. Call a group of kids in. I'm not going to call you idiots, but I'm going to call you idiotic. How many of you played junior tennis for years and years playing one-up, one-back doubles? They're all playing for that 2-inch trophy. They all play one-up, one-back. And, how many junior tennis is they say, well, that kid went 5 years without playing one serve and volley point. And, I just grew up in a different world. It's like, well, the puck goes in the corner. I'm not going after it. I mean, there's just things that are principle based. And it's like, are you kidding me? It's just so bad. So with changing the grips on volley, Vandermeer, what takes more time, to change your grip or not change your grip? It takes the same amount of time. Not only you have to change your grip, you have to change the position of your arm, but you have to be conditioned to do it. So again and again, I spent my life saying the right things to the wrong people. Wimbledon's on TV. We have this place a half mile from the tennis center, 2 big TV rooms. You can walk through one to the other. And, you make a video for your kids. Hey, while you're watching TV tonight, relaxing, but they can't put their cell phone down. You can't work on changing your grips if you're hanging onto a cell phone. And just the whole time. I remember George Goldoff was with us during the NBA. It's, NBA playoffs and NHL playoffs. So Goldoff, good thing we have more than one TV because this TV is for the NHL. But, I remember him just shadow swinging the whole time through entire game. When pros come through, they're drinking water all the time. They have to go buy ice. Sure, I think of my son Connor. He's ranked 200 in the ATP, so he played a little bit. And when the pros practice, they don't really even keep score. They know if they lost their serve, they're losing. And so You try everything. You go to the net and you win, you get a +3. You're not even keeping score against your opponent. For simple math, your opponent's going to serve 5, you serve 5. And if you win at the net, it's a +3. If you lose, it's a -1. Flip it at the baseline. You go +2, -2 in the middle of the court. But so you try to launch a missile from the tennis. GreatBase is a language. Hey, kid, you're in the neutral. You're in the neutral area of the red zone. You missed the ball outside the percentage post wide. It's 78 feet versus 82.5 going cross court. And they don't even know the information. If that was a kid who's trying to be on a basketball team or a football team, they're going to know the information. But I think, I heard Secker ask one of our students one time, she was on our podcast, Sophia Patel, who's the MVP of UNC when they won the national championship. What she did really is off-court support, even really in the nuts and bolts of ball striking and the X's and O's of strategy. And Secker said, isn't it fun to hit overheads? Isn't it fun to hit volleys? Because he was with us when we were going to nonprofit out in Memphis because the girls' 18s were in Memphis. I think it's downright embarrassing. I mean, I think if I mispronounce the name, Jamie Saratini, quarterfinals of Wimbledon twice, I think. He had 2 wins over Federer in doubles twice. So he spent some time with us through Andy Fitzell. And this kid, Arush Ganji, who you spent time with, we sent him to you. And, he's an All-American. He hasn't set it on fire at Tufts, but he's been an All-American and in doubles. And Saratini said to me, this guy volleys so well. I said, yeah, it's great, but he doesn't go to the net. People travel all over the world. These parents, chasing ITF points, going all over the world. And I go, yeah, but you don't take the 39-foot trip. What do you mean? Your kid won't go to the net. You can go to Barbados and, you can go to Costa Rica. You go to Guam. You can find tournaments here, there, and everywhere where you're going to make the cut and get in. But no, it's a crisis, with, we always go, palm on the forehand volley, knuckles on the backhand volley, bent to bent, ideally more straight to straight for developmental players, and your body's at a 45, body sideways. We do this drill. I know you do it. Service line to service line. One kid's tossing the ball and the other one's catching. We go 8 to be great. You look across the courts and they look like Sampras. Even the young kids coming in, gliding, hitting through one-handed backhand volley. But when they play, they don't do that because your phrase from years ago, we called the junior program that make the connection. People don't make the connection. Let's go 2 more and we'll call it. Hopefully we're giving out value. What do you think? Say your last name one more time.
Last name?
What is it?
Alevizopoulos.
Going to put that on a spelling test, baby. What do you got, Anderson?
I had one more thing on strokes. It was really because, there isn't a lot of naysayers on when they watch systematically go through backhands. But the one thing that will get brought up occasionally is, one grip system on the backhand. And if you could just elaborate on that with, basically not trying to trick the brain. I mean, if you're a righty, turn into the left side, just get the grip aligned.
Well, yeah, on a two-handed backhand, I mean, years ago when I first got into tennis, Connors, fit 1952, Everett 1954, Borg 1956. I have to get Andres Barbosa or fact checker on the years they were born. So the revolution of the two-handed backhand, boom, it was in after that. I mean, there's players before that with, it's been proven in research that say a right hander, the left hand, the hypertrophy, the expansion of the muscles in the left hand, you're basically left hand dominates. Now, for range of motion, you really ideally want to have a continental grip on the bottom hand. I don't really like the term parameters, the USTA and player event. Well, the parameters is that when people first start, it's like, no, this is the way you're doing it. And why to have it on the right side of one? We're just talking of a fraction of an inch, but it makes a big difference on the racket face. On the backhand side, by having the grip on the right side of one, you have a better chance of closing the racket in. And then for a kid to come in and not have downplay on the backhand volley. And most young kids, they go to a one-hander too soon because they want to copy the pros. But I don't think, coming back to what Jeff Lewis said, the cognitive stage, is that development means development. And, what happens is, like say, for example, we have this one gal here who's a really good athlete. She's played college tennis. So we have all these other people that are aspiring to play college tennis. I mean, we have someone who hasn't started kindergarten. And, we've got adults say, well, because you can come here and be a passive observer, or you could be a parent who's going to be an active observer. We have plenty of court space. And with the backhand, that's the reason right now we're using the backhand grip. I mean, pro tennis is Mount Everest. It's a long, long ways away. Jimmy Rogers, funny guys, a longtime friend, started off as a student. Now I'm his student. But Jimmy, college tennis is a goal. Pro tennis is a dream. I mean, the numbers are frightening. 3% of kids play college tennis. 85% of kids who don't make the lineup as a freshman don't make the lineup. And it's like, shut up and listen. I was talking to a 5-year-old and 6-year-old today. I said, everybody sit down. And I said, this is how these two boys would be coached in the other side of the world. And I'm using my voice. My voice is like the old lion. You don't want to start screaming here. And I'm not mad, but some of the moms are like, my parents used to have this line, they're making a fool of their kids. But no, to get the grips right, Richard Hernandez, what would improve tennis in Canada? Grips. That was his answer. Grips. As a child, you're at the mercy of your impulses, a slave to your habits. I mean, I walk by all the time. You're two-handed, the backhand, the left hand sliding under, just like the right hand sliding under, because when the ball's up high, it's going to help them get the racket face square at the hit. But in Braden's book, Tennis for the Future and Tennis 2000, he did work with James Priest, Robert Nerschel, orthopedic surgeons on tennis elbow. And at one point, Vic Braden taught 2 forehand grips. I have a film of Vic. It's a collector's item to me, teaching tennis in the 60s. I peel the orange. But what Braden would say is that once you find a better way, once someone gives you the scientific rationale, you're in. And his thing on changing grips on the volley is just like a chest pass in basketball. You just, how quick can people just make a chest pass? But they have to work on it. Braden's favorite drill is one player on one baseline, one player on the other baseline. We did that just the other day. I called it, Dave, rat-a-tat-tat. Make the other player look like a donut. I know Robbie Seguzo well. Seguzo is such an easygoing guy, but if kids are out there playing and they hit a lob volley, he'd go crazy. He'd absolutely lose his marbles. It's because you can't hit a lob volley every once in a blue moon. You hit a lob volley, that ball's coming down your throat. But there's a guy who's never won in the world for 5 years in doubles. So being able to just, the stick of volley means get hit by a stick. But it's not taught from the get-go. And to me, I've talked to up here in the mountains, I talked to, some people who run the place who know a lot about skiing. It's like be putting your skis on backwards, or, your left boots on your right foot and your right boots on your, I mean, come on. It's just, it is totally backwards, but it has to start from the very beginning. We're working with kids, if they can't catch and throw. We did a fun drill the other day. We have these 4 little twisters, little kids. Mm-hmm. Ball's got to bounce, catch it, and sprint to the basket, set it in the basket, and then sprint. Pretty soon, they're trying to catch it in the air and just toss it to the basket. No, you have to let it bounce, catch it, and then toss it. No, not toss it, run it to the basket. But, if you think about years ago, a kid was just doing that by throwing the ball against the garage door. They made their own fun. Kids today, they don't even daydream. We have a half-mile walk back and forth to the tennis house, and kids are on FaceTime. They're talking to all their buddies at home. I mean, it's like, can't you just not be on that idiot? Well, The TV years ago was the Idiot Box. Last one. What do you got off? Something besides stroke production.
All right, this is a biggie.
All right.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
You have one TV in front of you. We'll end with this one. I'll save the rest of them for another time. One TV in front of you, and you have to pick. The Wimbledon final is on at the same time this year as the Stanley Cup final, Game 7. And we're like an old time TV. There's no rewind, no way to record.
No, I would watch. I would watch the Wimbledon final because it's a duty. I make my living coaching tennis, and it's mandatory. It's mandatory to be a student of the game.
Awesome answer.
And it's a must to watch.
Yeah.
What would I rather watch?
This is kind of the reverse of the pickleball and watching bad tennis. Bad choices. These are two good choices.
I'll tell you one thing about pickleball is this last week we have 3 indoor courts, so we have 6 nice pickleball nets, and we've got 12 kids who can hit the ball well, and we're out there hitting pickleball. And Coach Ilya's up here, and he goes, "This is great. They have to lift so much." And we're going down the line, cross court, and I'm with Sam Query. If you know tennis, you know 90% of what you need to know in pickleball. So I'm watching TV the other day, and Rachel Rohrbacher has been on that podcast. I go to this podcast. It's called Tennis Sucks. I go, I got to listen to this. And the next thing I know, they hear Rohrbacher's name. And, if she was with us, she was closer to a decade than a day. And they put up a world rank list and she's 7. I know Ryler DeHart's wife is really high, but Ryler is making his living. I understand he's traveling around in Winnebago. There's certainly some subtleties, but pickleball is a wild, wild west. It's like the 70s, and they're making it up as they go along. And, the people up here, for the most part, that are playing are my age. It's like Jan Tiriak says, everybody's between 65 and dead. And, they're old people playing pickleball. So what I told someone the other day, I said, no, what we need to do is take these young people we have, they know how to play tennis, and there's some people up here that play tournaments and are really into it. So no, we can have the members teach the students. The members who play pickleball can teach the students who travel here for tennis. But no, I think it's one's duty to watch pro tennis, follow pro tennis, be current and read about the game, and so that would not be my personal choice, but it's mandatory to watch the tennis. The other day at 5 hours and 29 minutes of the French Open.
Yeah.
How could you be in tennis, especially if that's your livelihood, and you don't watch that?
Yeah.
That's just not right. Say your full name again, sir.
Constantinos Alevizopoulos.
Today I had him explain the serve in Greek. There's that expression. Sometimes you're in a meeting and you just say, well, that's Greek to me. But no, for our listeners, thanks. I hope we shared some value today with this. And Phil behind the scenes, Ivan Oseretz, who's not here. He's done so much for the GreatBase, and Casas, and you, Dave. Thank you. Everyone enjoy the rest of Wimbledon.
All right, guys. Have a good night.
All right, good night. Thanks.
Good night.
All right, bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.